Hello everybody, I'm Virali, your guide on this coding adventure. Welcome back to learning HTML along with our HTML series with Learn with Virali. So in this video, we are going to go ahead and understand how to go ahead and write line breaks, comments and give spacing into our HTML code. So let's get started. If you remember on our previous video, we had created a basic structure of HTML by creating our first web page. So I'm going to go ahead create a new file by clicking on file, click on new file, and then I'm just going to go ahead and write as day2.html, save this file, and there we go. So now I'm just going to go ahead, press Ctrl A, Ctrl C, copy this code and bring it here in our second file or day2 file.html. Now, if you want to go ahead and understand how to give line breaks, first make sure that we understand the concept correctly. I'm just going to go ahead and press 3 enter keys here after the first header and the paragraph, making sure that I'm giving spaces between these two sections which have h1 as an header and h2 as an header. So if I want to go ahead and give spaces like this in my code, for me to understand that if these spaces are interpreted by the browser correctly or not, I'm just going to go ahead, press Ctrl S to see if browser also understands these spaces. I'm just going to press on run and debug, or if I'm not comfortable clicking up here, I can just go ahead and click on these three dots, click on run and then start debugging or run without debugging. So let us see our output screen, which is going to be looking like this. If you look onto this website, you can pretty much understand that there is no change as far as our web page is concerned. So basically the browser did not understand about us giving 3 enter keys or 3 spaces like how we had given in our code. So for browser to understand that it has to identify that particular instruction as a space, we need to go ahead and use something called as ampersand NBSP, or we can go ahead and use a BR tag. So let us go ahead back onto the code and write whatever we need in order to specify these kind of spaces. So instead, if I'm interested in writing or in giving a space after the first header is completed, I'm just going to go ahead and write an instruction called as a break line for 3 times. Since I had given the 3 spaces here, I need 3 spaces here. Now, this is the tag which we had also discussed this before, understanding that this is an empty tag, as in it is just an instruction for the browser to understand that it has to interpret this as a new line. So I'm just going to make this as a self-closing tag wherein it can have the browser understand that this has to be treated as a new line, or the next paragraph has to be started after the 3 spaces. Now, if you notice, these are self-closing tags since we are not giving any content in between the starting and the ending of these tags, unlike how we are doing it for the p tag. Like once the p tag is started, then we have some content in between and then we have the ending p tag. So that's the reason these kind of tags are interpreted as an empty tags. So now if I go ahead and save this and go back to our browser, let us go ahead and check onto our browser, refresh it once again, and there you go. So this is how the browser has now interpreted that some space has to be given up between the 2 header sections. So this is how we can use the break line or the BR tags in order for browser to understand this concept of line breaks. Okay, let us go ahead and understand our next topic, which is how to write comments in HTML. Alright, so understanding comments for HTML. First of all, comments is something which is going to help you to enhance and make your code more rich in order for you to understand. Let's say in case if you are having any issue or if you are troubleshooting some of the errors, it is always better to have comments in place for you to better understand your code and to make your debugging section or debugging session a little bit faster. So in order to write comments in HTML, syntax looks something like this. We have to write a less than sign followed by an exclamation mark and two hyphens, which is automatically gonna be closed by two other hyphens and a greater than sign. So in between these two opening and the closing tags, I'm just gonna write down my comment for our second header, which is using h2 tag for creating a second header section. And similarly, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this line, put it up onto my first h1 tag, again specifying this, that using h1 tag for creating the first header section, as this makes me understand that every time I'm creating a new header section, I'm using one of our header tags, which is from h1 to h6, and there's how I can go ahead and make my code more richer, as if somebody else also reviews my code, understands why is this particular tag being used for creating this particular section. Okay, so these tags or these comments are just for you and your code. This has nothing to do with the output screen, so you won't be able to see these comments onto your output screen. Let me just go ahead and show the same onto the output screen as well. So I'm just gonna save this file. Going back to my output screen, I'm just gonna go ahead and refresh it. Even if I refresh the screen, you are not able to see the comments which we had written in our code. But if there is something missing onto the syntax part, the browser is gonna go ahead and treat that particular line as text. So let's say, for instance, if I go ahead and remove this exclamation mark, save this, go back to the browser to see the change, we would be able to see the change now, as you can see here on the output screen that missing an exclamation mark is being now treated as another set of text which needs to be shown onto our output screen, which is glitch onto our coding part. So let us go ahead and fix this again, making sure that we give appropriate comments to our code. And this is what is going to help us to enhance our code faster and better. All right, so understanding comments is nothing but making your code more richer and enhanced at the same time. Let us go ahead and move on to the spacing part. So now let me write two keywords here, as in test space test. If I save this and go back to my output screen, refresh the code, I will be able to see test space test, which is what is a normal thing onto writing our HTML codes. But what if I want to go ahead and have at least like 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and 4 between these two keywords, which is test and test written here. If I save this, again go back to the browser screen to see if the browser interprets this as a separate space. Even if I refresh the page, I still can see only one particular test space which was created at the very beginning. So now if I want to go ahead and add some more spaces in here in between these two words, what I need to do is I need to tell the browser that there has to be a space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use ampersand NBSP as one space. Next, I'm going to use again as ampersand NBSP. Next, again, ampersand NBSP. And one more time, ampersand NBSP. And now if I go ahead and save this, let us check it out onto our browser. What can we actually see? So going on to my web page, refreshing the web page, and if you can notice, the extra set of spaces have been added in between these two words, which is test and test. So in order for you to add an extra set of spaces, make sure you give an appropriate instruction to the browser, like ampersand NBSP, which is meant for the browser to understand that there is a need for an extra space in between these two words, and that's how an extra space will be created onto your output screen. I hope you understood all these three topics, and make sure you try to practice at the same time just so that it's better graspable and better understandable. In the next video, we'll go ahead and take a look onto the headings and the block quotes followed by superscript and subscript of the texts. Until then, happy coding.